I hired a pie to follow my wife's late night shifts. The file he returned had 20 photos, all of me. The file had 20 photos, all of me. Let me just start there. Because that's where my whole world stopped spinning and flipped upside down, and honestly, I'm still trying to figure out which way is up. You ever have one of those moments where your brain just refuses to process what your eyes are seeing? Like you look at something, you know it's real, it's right there in front of you, but your mind keeps trying to rewrite it into something else because the actual truth is just too insane to accept. That was me. Standing in my living room at 11:37 at night, holding a manila envelope that weighed about 3 pounds, and inside were 20 glossy 8x10s that completely demolished everything I thought I knew about my marriage, my wife, and honestly my own damn sanity. But I gotta back up. I gotta tell you how I got to that point because it wasn't some sudden thing. It was a slow burn. A creeping, insidious little whisper that started in the back of my head and grew into a roar that I couldn't ignore anymore. And you want to know what started it? Reddit. I swear to you it was Reddit that planted the seed. I'm a lurker, always have been. I spend way too much time scrolling through r/relationship advice and r/true off my chest, reading about other people's trainwreck lives and thinking, man, thank God that's not me. I'd read these wild stories about guys finding burner phones in their wife's glove box or girls finding hotel receipts in their husband's jacket pocket, and I'd shake my head and think, how do people not see it coming? Oh, how the universe loves to laugh at that kind of arrogance. I remember this one story I read, probably 6 months ago now, about this dude whose wife started working late nights at the office. Classic, right? He hired a pie, got the photos, and there she was, holding hands with some guy from accounting at a steakhouse. The comments were brutal. Everyone told him he was blind, that the signs were there, that he just didn't want to see them. I remember upvoting that post and scrolling past it, thinking nothing of it. But that post, it stuck in my head like a splinter. And then there was another one, this gut-wrenching tale from a woman who found her husband's secret second phone in the garage, and it had text messages to another woman going back 2 years. 2 years. She had been sleeping next to a stranger for 700 nights. The betrayal in that post was so palpable you could taste it. I read it out loud to Sarah that night, can you believe that? I read it to her and we both laughed about how crazy people are, how we would never do that to each other. We were solid. We were the couple that other couples envied, or so I thought. About 4 months ago, Sarah got this new position at the hospital. She's a nurse, been doing it for over a decade, and she moved up to a supervisory role, which meant more responsibility, more hours, and a whole lot of late-night shifts. That's the actual term she used. Late-night shifts. She'd leave around 7 in the evening and roll back in around 3 or 4 in the morning. And at first it was fine. I was proud of her. I'd leave a plate of food in the microwave, go to sleep, and wake up to her curled up next to me, smelling like antiseptic and exhaustion. But then, the little things started to change. First, it was the texting. She used to leave her phone on the kitchen counter all the time. We had an open door policy, never had anything to hide. But suddenly that phone was glued to her hand. She'd take it to the bathroom with her. She'd angle the screen away when she was sitting on the couch. I'm not a snoop, I never was, but you notice that stuff. You'd have to be dead inside not to notice that stuff. Then it was the distance. She used to talk to me about her day, all the drama with the doctors and the patients and the catty nurses. But now she'd come home and just stare at the wall. I'd ask her how work was and she'd say fine without even looking at me. Fine, that word, I swear to God, I hate that word now. It's the emptiest word in the English language. It's the word you use when you don't want to tell the truth, but you don't have the energy to lie properly. And then came the smell. She'd come home and hop straight in the shower, every single time. I mean, I get it, hospitals are gross, you want to wash the day off. But it was the way she did it, like she was scrubbing something off her skin, something she didn't want me to smell. My brain started connecting dots that probably weren't there, but the Reddit stories I'd read were whispering in my ear. Bro, she's cheating. You're the last one to know. That's how it always works. The breaking point, the moment I decided to do something I never thought I'd do, was a Tuesday night. I was in the kitchen making coffee for the next morning and her phone was on the counter. She'd just gotten out of the shower and was in the bedroom. I wasn't even looking for anything, I swear, but the screen lit up. A notification from a number I didn't recognize, just 3 words. See you tonight. My blood turned to ice. My hands started shaking. See you tonight? She was already home. She was supposed to be off tonight. What the hell did that mean? I didn't confront her. I wish I had. I wish I could go back in time and just grab her shoulders and look her in the eye and say, who the hell is that? But I didn't because I was scared. I was terrified of what the answer might be, so instead I let the paranoia fester. I let it grow into this monstrous thing that consumed every waking thought. I stopped sleeping. I stopped eating. I just watched her like a hawk. I'd pretend to be asleep when she came to bed, but I'd be wide awake, listening to her breathing, wondering if she was thinking about him. Whoever he was, and that's when I made the call. That's when I hired Frank. Frank was a private investigator I found through a guy at work who used him for a workers' comp case. He was an ex-cop, probably 65, with a gut that hung over his belt and a voice like he'd been smoking gravel since the 70s. He smelled like stale coffee and regret, We met at a diner downtown and I spilled my guts to him. I told him about the late shifts, the secret texts, the distance, the showering, the see you tonight. I told him I needed proof. I needed to know the truth so I could either confront her or move on with my life. I told him I'd pay anything. Frank just nodded, sipped his black coffee and said, "Standard package, 20 photos, I'll tail her for 3 days. If she's stepping out, I'll catch her in the act." He quoted me $3,000 cash up front. I emptied my savings account for that money. I didn't even hesitate. That's how desperate I was. The next 3 days were absolute hell on earth. I went to work, I came home, I pretended everything was normal, but inside I was a churning mess of anxiety and dread. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. Every time Sarah looked at me, I flinched. I was waiting for that call from Frank that would confirm my worst fears and shatter my marriage. On the 4th day, I got a text from him. It just said, "Got the file. Come pick it up." No explanation, no hint, just that. I left work early, told my boss I had a migraine, and drove to Frank's office. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I remember gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles were white. I remember the drive being a blur. I remember walking up the creaky stairs to his second-floor office, my legs feeling like they were made of rubber. Frank was sitting behind his desk, that same bored expression on his face. He slid a thick manila envelope across the desk. It was heavy. I could feel the weight of those 20 photos inside. 20 photos, he said, his voice flat. Just like I promised. I didn't open it there. I couldn't. I felt like I was gonna throw up. I grabbed the envelope, mumbled a thanks, and practically ran out of there. I drove home in a daze. I sat in my car in the driveway for a solid 15 minutes, just staring at the envelope on the passenger seat. I turned it over in my hands. I felt the edges of the photos inside. I tried to prepare myself for what I was about to see. I told myself, "It's okay, you knew this was coming, just rip the Band-Aid off." So I went inside. I locked the front door behind me. I sat down on the couch, the same couch where we'd watched 1,000 movies together, the same couch where we'd fallen asleep on each other's shoulders 1,000 times, and I opened the envelope. The first photo was a man, mid-50s, balding on top, wearing a gray windbreaker. He was getting out of a sedan in a parking lot. I frowned. Who the hell is this guy? I flipped to the second photo. Same guy, walking into a budget motel. The kind with the neon vacancy sign that flickers, the kind you rent by the hour. Third photo. Same guy, checking in at the front desk. I could see the clerk handing him a key. I flipped faster. Fourth, fifth, sixth photo. All this same random dude, going into a room, coming out of a room, smoking a cigarette outside the room. I was getting frustrated. I thought Frank had given me the wrong file. I thought there was some mix-up. I flipped to photo number 7. Still the same guy, now he was at a diner eating a burger. Photo 8, same guy walking down a street. Photo 9, same guy getting into a different car. Photo 10, same guy. Wait a second, I squinted. I held the photo up closer, the background of that photo. That was my office building. I recognized the fire escape on the side. My hands started to tremble. Photo 11, same guy, but now he's closer. Now I can see his face better, and I'm starting to feel something cold creep up my spine because that jawline, that nose. Photo 12, my heart stopped. My breath caught in my throat. I dropped the photo on the coffee table like it had burned me. Photo 12 was me walking out of my office building. I was wearing my blue shirt, the one I wore last Tuesday. I remember that day because I spilled coffee on it. I couldn't breathe. I grabbed the rest of the photos and started flipping through them like a man possessed. Photo 13, me getting into my car. Photo 14, me driving down the highway. Photo 15, me pulling into my own damn driveway. Photo 16, me walking up the steps to my front door. Photo 17, me kissing Sarah hello in the entryway. I could see my hand on her waist. Photo 18, me through the kitchen window making dinner. Photo 19, me sitting on the couch in the living room watching TV. Photo 20, me asleep in my own bed with Sarah's head resting on my chest. 20 photos. Every single one of them was me. I stared at them spread out across the coffee table. My whole life laid out in glossy 8x10s. Me, just me, going about my boring, mundane, ordinary life. Frank hadn't followed Sarah for 3 days. Frank had followed me. I felt like I was losing my mind. I grabbed my phone and called Frank immediately. He answered on the second ring. "Frank, what the hell is this?" I screamed into the phone. My voice cracked. "These are all pictures of me. You followed me. I paid you to follow my wife, and you gave me a dossier on my own daily routine. What kind of sick joke is this?" There was a long, heavy silence on the other end of the line. I could hear him breathing, that raspy, gravelly breath. And then Frank said, in a voice so calm it made my skin crawl, "I know, just that. I know," and then he hung up on me. I stood there in my living room, surrounded by 100 pieces of photographic evidence of my own mundane existence, feeling the walls close in around me. My phone was still in my hand. I called him back straight to voicemail. I called him a third time, voicemail. A fourth time, the line went dead like the number had been disconnected. I was alone in my house with a pile of photos of myself, and I had no idea why. That's when I heard it, the sound I'd heard 1,000 times before, but this time it sounded like a gunshot. A key turning in the front door lock. Sarah walked in. She was still in her scrubs. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked exhausted, she looked pale, she looked scared. "Hey babe," she said, kicking off her shoes. "Sorry I'm late, the shift ran long, we had an emergency admit," and she stopped talking because she saw my face. And then she saw the photos spread out across the coffee table. Her entire face went white. I mean, I've never seen a human being lose all their color that fast. She dropped her bag on the floor. Her hands flew to her mouth. "Where did you get those?" she whispered. Her voice was tiny. It was the voice of someone who's been caught, and I lost it. "Who is Frank?" I shouted. "Why does he have pictures of me? Why did he follow me? I hired him to follow you, Sarah. You, and he sent me a file full of my own face. What is going on?" And then she started to cry. Not the kind of dramatic crying you see in the movies. Not the kind of crying you do when you're trying to manipulate someone. This was the ugly, gut-wrenching, soul-crushing kind of crying. The kind that comes from a place so deep inside you that it hurts just to look at it. She walked over to me, her legs shaking. She took my hands in hers. Her hands were cold. She led me to the couch, pushed the photos aside, and sat me down. Then she knelt in front of me, still holding my hands, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I hired him," she sobbed. "I hired Frank. I hired him to follow you." I stared at her, my brain short-circuited. "What, why? Because I thought you were cheating on me," she cried. "I thought you were having an affair." I blinked. "Sarah, I would never cheat on you. I love you. I would never, ever do that to you." "I know," she said, squeezing my hands. "I know that now. I was so stupid. I was so paranoid, but I started noticing things a few months ago. You were coming home late. You were distant. You were on your phone all the time. I found a receipt in your pocket from a restaurant I'd never been to, and I convinced myself you were seeing someone else." "Sarah, let me finish," she begged, her voice breaking. I was so scared of losing you that I couldn't think straight. So I hired Frank. I told him to follow you for a few days and get proof. I was desperate. I was out of my mind. But the photos," I said, my mind reeling. "He sent them to you. He sent you pictures of me." "No," she said, shaking her head violently. "I told him to stop. After the first few days, I realized I was wrong. I realized I was being insane. You weren't cheating. You were just working late. You were trying to provide for us. I saw the photos he took of you and I felt so ashamed. I told him to stop. I told him the job was over. I paid him and I told him to destroy the photos. But he didn't destroy them," I said, looking down at the pile on the coffee table. "He kept them and he sent them to me." Sarah looked at me, her eyes wide with terror. "I don't know why he kept following you," she whispered. "I told him to stop. I don't know why he's still watching you." And that's when the ice-cold realization hit me like a freight train. Frank wasn't working for Sarah anymore. He hadn't been working for her for weeks, but he was still following me, and I had just paid him $3,000. I grabbed my phone again. I called Frank's number one more time. This time it didn't even ring. It just went straight to an automated message. "The number you are trying to reach is no longer in service." I drove back to his office the next morning. I had to know, I had to find him. I ran up those creaky stairs and burst through his door. The office was empty, completely cleared out. The desk was gone. The computer was gone. The filing cabinets, the chairs, everything. Just a bare, dusty room with a single piece of paper lying in the middle of the floor. I walked over and picked it up with trembling hands. It was a photo of me and Sarah, taken from across the street. Through the window of our own home. We were sitting on the couch and I was holding her face in my hands. It must have been taken the night before. On the back of the photo, written in black pen, were 4 words. "See you soon. I don't know who hired Frank. I don't know if he was working for someone else the whole time. I don't know if Sarah's paranoia was just a coincidence or if she was set up or if I was set up. I don't know if Frank is a lone wolf or if he's part of something bigger. I don't know why he wanted me to know he was watching. I don't know why he wanted me to see those photos of my own face staring back at me. But I know one thing for absolute certain. Someone is watching me, every move I make, every place I go, and they want me to know it. I keep thinking about all those Reddit stories I read. All those tales of betrayal and heartbreak and shattered trust. I thought my story was one of those stories. I thought I was the victim. I thought I was the husband getting cheated on. But now I realize. I'm in a completely different kind of story. A story I don't understand. A story where the villain isn't my wife and the hero isn't me. A story where I'm just a character in someone else's twisted game. And the worst part. The absolute worst part is that I still don't know if I can trust Sarah. Not because of the cheating, because I know now she wasn't cheating, but because she hired someone to follow me behind my back. She broke my trust. She didn't believe in me. She saw those Reddit stories too, and she let them turn her into a paranoid wreck just like they turned me into one. We were both so busy reading about other people's disasters that we created our own. We both fed the monster, we both let suspicion rot us from the inside out, but now there's a real monster out there. A real one, and he's got pictures of my face in his file. I've been checking my rearview mirror every 5 seconds for the past week. I've been leaving lights on in the house. I've been sleeping with a baseball bat under the bed. I've changed all my passwords. I've locked down my social media. I've even thought about moving, just packing up and disappearing. But I know that won't help because whoever Frank is or whoever Frank works for, they found me once, they'll find me again. The moral of my story, the lesson I've learned the hard way, is that paranoia is a poison. It's a sickness. It creeps into your brain and makes you see shadows where there are none. It makes you turn on the people you love. It makes you hire strangers to spy on your own spouse. It makes you lose your goddamn mind over a text message that was probably just a wrong number. But here's the real kicker. Sometimes, just sometimes, the shadows are real. Sometimes the monster under the bed is actually there. And when you've spent all your time looking for monsters in your marriage, you might not notice the one that's been standing right outside your window the whole time. I don't know if I'll ever get my old life back. I don't know if Sarah and I can rebuild what we broke. And I don't know who's going to show up at my door next. But I do know that I'm never hiring a private investigator again. And I'm never reading another Reddit cheating story as long as I live. Because the scariest stories aren't the ones you read on your phone at 3 in the morning. The scariest stories are the ones you're living in, right now, without even knowing it. So if you're out there, Frank, or whoever you really are, I want you to know something. I'm watching too now, and I'm ready. See you soon.